All right. Call this meeting to order. This is the February 21st meeting of the Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue Board of Directors. Please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You're a strong American in the group. Thank you. Let's call for roll, please.
Director Carnahan?
Here.
Director Woodbury? Director Green?
Here.
Director Phillips?
Here.
Director Hickson?
Here. Director Woodbury is excused, so we do have a quorum, so thank you very much. All right, let's move on. Has the board had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from the January 17th meeting? And if so, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. This is the part of the meeting where we would allow for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board of directors with anything that's not on the agenda, please be aware that we do allow up to 30 minutes for total, and each person would have 3 minutes, and they would be on the clock. So any public comment, please. Being none, thank you. We'll move on to new business and turn it over to the chief for the first item.
What we'd like to do is we'd like to call firefighter Adam Hathaway up to perform a swearing-in ceremony. Chief, see me to the death. If we could have you stand over there. Adam, we go through a little bit of a ritual here when we do this, and I'm going to hand you this, and that's going to be what we say as we go through it. Okay, but before we swear you in, I want you to know that as the chief, I consider this a commitment. Okay, so you're making a commitment between yourself, our fire district, and the community, and we want you to take that seriously. We realize that our folks are volunteers and that we ask a lot of them, but at the same time, we want you to understand that the community really depends on you. Okay, so I guess before we go any further, I want to ask you, I want to look you in the eye, person to person, and say, is this a commitment that you're willing to make?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. With that, I'm going to have you raise your right hand, and we're going to go line by line, okay? So I say it, and then you say it.
Yes, sir.
Don't get ahead of me, okay? Because that's what always happens when we start going, okay? So you're ready?
Ready.
I, say your name,
I, Adam Hathaway,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to protect the citizens and visitors of our community,
to protect the citizens and visitors of our community,
to follow the orders of my commanding officers,
to follow the orders of my commanding officers,
to always treat my fellow first responders with respect and professionalism,
to always treat my fellow first responders with respect and professionalism,
to treat the people I am called to help as though they are a member of my own family,
to treat the people I am called to help as though they are members of my own family,
to represent Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue with honor and dignity both on and off duty,
to represent Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue with honor and dignity both on and off duty,
and to uphold all local, state, and federal constitutions and laws.
and to uphold all local, state, federal constitutions and laws.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Adam.
Thank you, sir.
We'll get some pictures and we'll frame in between us here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
All right.
One more.
One more. Two more.
Another presentation.
Please.
Okay, and that is recognition of 2 National Registry MT Basic graduates. So we'll have Warren and Holly come forward. So Warren, I'll have you hold this.
This is
isn't necessarily like a swearing-in process, but it's my opportunity to recognize you in front of the board, and in front of the members of our community. So we recently had an EMT basic training program here, and it was an accelerated, I think it was what, still having 115 hours, or how many hours in there?
Yeah.
122 hours of their time that they did in addition to their full-time jobs. So they spent a lot of nights and a lot of weekends here. And of the group that has gone through, these are the first two to receive their certifications. And I can tell you from personal experience that a National Registry examination is not easy. And I know you had to study for it. And I know that the EMT basic curriculum is way higher than it was when I went through. And I really appreciate you doing that. Our community is better off for it. And you guys really impressed me with your dedication. So I just want to thank you and recognize you for that. Good job.
That'd be perfect, and Director Green, a little that way, sir, or that way. No, you guys are good.
That's right.
All right, here we go. And then close up. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Move on? Okay. We have several action items to address this evening. The first being the approval of health reimbursement account resolution. Jim, do you want to set this up at all, or?
You bet. So last year, during the 17-18 budget process, we talked about starting an HRA VIVA. We currently have a health reimbursement program where up to $1,200 if an employee has an expense that is outside of their normal coverage, they can be reimbursed. What is different about a VIVA versus the health reimbursement program that we currently have is that if the $1,200 is not used during that time period, it's basically it goes away. Where with a VIVA program, what happens is that we take the money, we invest it into their account, and it remains in there until it's used, and it can remain in there for life. So if they retire, if they come in young and they're healthy and they're not using any of this money, it can accumulate, and it's also invested similar to like a deferred compensation. It's not exactly that, but it's managed very similar to that. So it's better for the employee. It's money essentially that we budget anyways, but it enables them to use it later in life when they may need it. In order for that to happen, the company that we are that we would like to go with requires a couple of things. One is a signed resolution by our governing board saying that this is a program that we want to adopt, and then the other is a letter from me saying that we're going to implement it. So with that, my recommendation is that you approve the program and sign the resolution.
Just a question, the contributions that are made by the employer.
That is
not the
correct.
employee,
That is correct.
And that will go into effect essentially immediately?
Right, we were hoping to have that start January 1 was the plan. We were behind. We had to get a few things caught up, but so as soon as I do this, I can basically get it moving.
And the amount of contribution by each participant or employee was in this year's budget?
Yes, that is correct.
And what happens with the money that they have in their current one?
Well, what we've agreed to do with them is if, for instance, we budgeted half, or we placed half of what we normally would in that account, and if it's not used, then we've agreed to carry it over. So it would vary. So some
Right.
employees may have half, the others would have more.
Historically, is this used up entirely, primarily by each employee or not?
It depends on the employee. The younger, healthy ones typically not as much. Some other folks will utilize every penny out of it. It just depends.
As you said, this carries on to retirement.
Correct, so they can retire and say, over the career of 30 years, they've accumulated 30,000 or whatever dollars, and they can use that throughout their life towards any healthcare related type of reimbursement. So it's a nice savings plan for later.
It's a great incentive too, it's a great thing.
Okay, so, well, basically, we're doing is putting $1,200 a year into this.
I was gonna say 750.
What we're doing is we have been budgeting, with the healthcare reimbursement, we budgeted $1,200. With the HRA VIVA, and this was in the budget last year, we budgeted $1,500, so half of that is $750.
Okay, now, if they have a major medical problem and they need to draw this out, say, 2 years from now, and it's over the $1,200 or $1,500, they can draw on that savings that they've already developed.
That's correct. So say you've got 3,000 in there, you need all 3,000, you can withdraw it. And then we'll continue to add into that as long as they're employed each year.
And that's not a taxable benefit to the employee.
That is correct.
If it's used for healthcare.
That is correct.
Is it taxable once they use it, once they pull it out?
I would have to check on that.
Just curious.
As long as it's done for healthcare, I don't believe it's.
I'm not sure, because it's not something that you cash out like a retirement.
It would not typically have a cash value other than the purpose of health reimbursement. That was.
Okay, so question that I have, I know we provide a pretty good health insurance program. Where are we at? I see, did you get down to the bottom in the ledger, the bank statement? Our capital replacement, I see $100,000 in that account. Do we have the capital improvement? Are we at $100,000 in that one also?
Raj, you put 100,000 in each one that was the carryover from last year.
If I may, I have not put 100,000 in the other one yet. I couldn't get to it on the bank, didn't have it for me when I moved one.
Okay.
So I've got that account set up now. I'll be moving it before the end of the month, so.
Okay, so we do have that money, because I know
Yes.
we budgeted it 2 years in a row, we're probably about to do it again. And this is the first money that's been moved into that account?
This is
correct?
this is correct. This is from the 16, 17, and then next year the 17, 18 will come in once we get past the dry period financing. Typically, this would have happened earlier, but with some of the administrative changes we've had, it hasn't been. So
I just hesitate to spend money that we don't have, even on this health, or this.
we did budget, and that was an approved budget last year. So this was, we did discuss this in the budget message last year. It was approved. So this isn't money that is outside of what we
You know, but there's a possibility that you might have leftover money that would go back into that same budget. If not everybody used all of their money,
I see
it
what
would
you're
stay
saying.
it would stay in the store and be available for next year.
Well, the contribution to each account is going to carry on ultimately.
Now,
Yes.
whereas prior to
Right.
tonight, it would have gotten.
This came right
So
back.
we came back to operation.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, am I thinking that?
Yeah.
You're correct. That's correct.
So I see what you're saying. You're wondering, well, if we generally have a lot left over every year and we're pulling it back into the budget, but we aren't gonna have it with this program, is that going to affect the bottom line?
Yeah, the question is,
Isn't this typically something that you would do during union negotiations? It's a huge benefit to the employee. I would think that the employer would want to use that to their benefit during union negotiations. I've been in the union now for 25 years till I retired, and that would be typically the time where you would do something like this. This seems peculiar that this would be a time to do it, not during negotiations. This is a huge negotiation chip for the district.
of course, yeah. I think at this point, we're just considering passing the resolution to even do this at all.
I mean, I think it's a great thing for the employee. I support it.
Yeah.
I just think the timing's not right.
Oh, again, this was last year's budget item. So this is, and this is more than just union employees, this is every employee.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Well, we are getting ready to start negotiations.
We have started.
We have? Okay. I see it, yeah, I see it as a big one. I'm 100% for it, don't get me wrong. I'm 100% for it because it makes sense, but it's something that should be negotiated. Yeah, that's all.
Well, is there a different approach to this considering, I guess, your discussion about using this as a negotiation?
Well, as part of their, would be part of their overall package that we're discussing
Sure.
in negotiation.
Right.
Like I said, I'm 100% for it. I think that it should be part of the negotiations. And I assume the union's 100% for it as well.
Yes, sir.
I think the reason it's being brought up, I'm assuming, is because this does impact employees who are not union as well, and we would need to have this conversation about that anyway.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion from the board to approve this resolution and move forward with this action item.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
So moved. Is there a second?
I would second that only on the standpoint that during negotiations, you will take this into consideration.
And there will be, we want to discuss this now, the discussion in executive session with respect to the. Okay. Well, we're going to have an executive session this evening, and that's allowed by Oregon statute, so.
I would second that.
Okay. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, resolution is passed. We'll sign that tonight. Thank you. So I asked Mary to put on the agenda a discussion item. Since we're entering the budget season, I have a bit of a concern with respect to, and we may, if we go into executive session, maybe discuss this there. I'll throw this out right now. That we have a number of employees of Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue that are part of the IGA. And so they have job descriptions that are quite unique in the respect that they don't have a lot of peers that do work for two districts. Specifically starting with the chief director, but I think there are others as well. I would like, as we go into the budget season, to see the district engage for a nominal expense, a third-party salary survey for several administrative positions, specifically chief director and others we can determine. I have talked to both HR Answers and also the fire chief associate, give me the name, Jim.
Oregon Fire Chiefs.
Oregon Fire Chiefs Association. HR Answers is a contract HR consultant, SCAO approved partner. They would provide a geographically relevant survey, meaning that they wouldn't go out and get the chief's salary from the city of Portland and consider that part of the survey. They like communities, like duties. Essentially, they do a survey for $180 per position. It would provide an average, both a median and an average, and then a salary range of minimum, mid, and high points. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, that we have salary ranges for the administrative positions. Is that correct? Okay. But I think, my concern now is if we feel like we have people in the right jobs today and on the admin side, that are they being appropriately compensated? And if they're not, they may look for other opportunities, and then we're going to have to hire someone that's appropriately compensated. So I think there's some responsibility to ensure continuity in leadership, continuity in service to the community, to have the right people in place. So discussion item, or if the board would like to further this to a later discussion in the executive session, I'm not asking to discuss salaries, other than at this point probably to spend about $450.
And we have that budgeted somewhere.
It's not a budget item.
Do we have the money somewhere?
Probably
$450 if we can't come up with that.
Well, that was my thought, yeah. And I should clarify, so I can do the math in my head, it's $540 for 3 positions. Any question or at this point, my objective would be is that this be ordered by the board and come to the board of directors, reported, of course, publicly, the results, and then either negotiations, we can determine what we want to do with this information. But I don't know if we have a fair starting point as to what is the salaries for certain jobs.
That would be good information for us to have.
Yeah.
Well, even if we use it later, 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, to have some sort of a, I mean, I kind of think of it as going into your doctor so you can get a baseline health exam too, so you know 5 years from now whether where you should be or not. I kind of look at this sort of the same way. I mean, are we where we're supposed to be? Are we higher? Are we lower?
Exactly right.
We don't really know because we've never been in this position before, so I think.
And obviously, my point of reference is in the private sector. This would be something that would be done in a lot of industries, public and private, and oftentimes every few years, not just once and put it on the shelf. But cost of living changes, positions change, salaries change, and I'd like to see the district pay the relevant and appropriate compensation for its management. So with that, it would be an unbudgeted expenditure. I would like to see the board engage HR answers to salary references or survey on chief director and then probably office manager and chief operations.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Motion tonight.
Mr. Motion, that's not a bad title. I appreciate that. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? HR Answers has committed that they will provide a response in about a week. Okay, so it'll be part of the public agenda packet. We have that. So thank you very much.
I think it's good information for the public to know.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
absolutely.
Indeed. All right, excuse me here. Oh, okay, next action item, turn it over to Jim, the appointment of the 2018-2019 budget officer.
So as part of the annual budget process, the board needs to officially appoint a budget officer. And typically that is the chief director. So my recommendation to you is you make a motion and approve me as the budget officer.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
First and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, approved that Jim Langford, chief director, is the budget officer for fiscal year 2018 and 19. Next agenda item is the appointment of a new budget committee member, and Jim,
Correct.
all of you.
As we begin preparing for the budget process, we go back and connect with all of our prior or current budget committee members, and they serve a 3-year term. The way that it is laid out is it's laid out that there is, for every board member, there's an equal number of citizen budget committee members. With the election of Director Green, that then opened up one, and I'll backtrack a little bit, all prior current budget committee members have committed to being able to serve this year as well. So it left an opening. In discussions with Director Green, we came up with a recommendation of Mr. Bob Forsyth for the open position. He is currently the Dune City Mayor. We don't have a lot of south of the bridge representation, so, and he also has a good background in governmental finance and budgeting himself. So with that, just as we move forward with the budget process, then I would like to make the recommendation to this board that we approve that individual as a budget committee member, and we can get moving on the budget process.
Any discussion about the recommendation? Yes.
I'd like to nominate Marvin Tiller, only because he spent 30 years in this department.
Okay.
35 years. Only because that information is moving forward as well, and he knows how the fire department works. That would make sense to me.
All right. The motion here has come to my recommendation to Jim. So I think essentially we had 2 nominations on the table. So I think we need to vote each candidate first, and then move forward.
Do we do any kind of a sort of interview or anything like that? Do we?
Maybe, do you mind answer that, Jim? I
Yeah,
don't know
it's-
necessarily.
I think it's up to you on how you want to proceed. My goal is to get the budget process moving. If you want to arrange some interviews with them at the next meeting, we really don't have our first budget meeting scheduled until April. It's your pleasure. But again, my goal is just to get this moving.
I mean, that's a consideration. Yeah, we can do that. It's a recommendation.
I don't know, it just seems, I hate to use this word prudent, but it just seems like a good idea to at least talk to folks who we think we'd like to have on there and kind of see what they bring to the table.
Sure. Director Langford, would that be something that would be done in a public meeting, at this board meeting in March? Or,
It could, I can check on what the proper, if there is, or legal way to do that. I've never encountered that before. So, yeah.
If I may.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's board pleasure at this point, because you're appointing the officer to your committee, so whatever process you guys choose can be that way.
well, again, I think if there's a recommendation by a director to consider a quasi-interview, does the board feel that's a good idea?
Well, that would be fine, yeah.
Okay.
The things I see is that he can bring the tables. He was chief of operations for, I don't know, 20 years, 25 years, something like that. Now, there's a lot of things that he could bring to that table that we don't have there.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I know Marvin's background, we all know Marvin's background, we know Bob's background. I just threw it out there because I guess I'm just used to that kind of a process before deciding.
A little more
what some of the
diplomatic
positions-
or-
Yeah, it's just an opportunity to sort of get to know the individual a little bit more on a personal basis before we make a decision and that sort of thing, rather than just appointing someone.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna have my feelings hurt if I'm not voting. Okay.
Well, the recommendation in this action item was to appoint a specific individual, Bob Forsythe. If we're not prepared to do that, we'd like to consider other candidates. But I think at this point, since we have an action item, I think we need to formally vote on this. Or table it altogether, but I think we have an item on the table to either vote or to vote down. So, is there a motion to approve, appoint Bob Forsythe to the budget committee?
I think that table.
Okay? For the record, I'll make the motion, but there won't be, apparently there's not a second. So then the motion will die. And then let us discuss whether we use the March board meeting or another time. I mean, this can be informal, but it doesn't have to be a public meeting where we can meet.
So I think from a staff perspective, so, we have board meetings monthly, and so that we're not stuck in limbo. I would recommend to the board that, you give direction and authority to the board president to have those discussions with me to facilitate that process, so that should we go forward in the next board meeting with interviews or something like that, we're prepared to do that. It's not like I have to come back and give you more information, and then we get right up into the April timeframe, and here we're against the wall when we need to be delivering our budget message and interacting with the committee members.
I think it really needs to happen either on or before the next meeting.
I think so. I think we really need to do this before the board meeting, so we have a decision and we can make a decision at that meeting.
Yeah, even if it's just before the meeting.
Did we even ask Marvin if he's willing? I don't know.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, yes,
This-
please.
Historically, I would say from 3 years past, both at the ambulance and at the fire department, each board member selected a budget committee member. So, Tony had somebody that served 3 years, John had somebody that served, so it was easy. You just
each board member picked a budget committee member, so that it was easy. And, you know, as far as, I think that Mr. Forsythe would be a great budget committee member. I think I can do a great job too. So if you don't pick me, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. But if you do, I will be glad to use my expertise and help with the budget process. So, I mean, I don't know what I can say in an interview that would make you guys, that you guys don't already know. All 5 board members know me inside out. So if you want me, you want me. If you don't, you don't. And I'm good either way.
Well, I appreciate the comments, Marvin. Is the past of how the process, was that dictated by Oregon statute, or was that an internal policy? Where did that come from?
It's just the way it was done. I don't know, like I said, I don't think there's any law that says how you have to do it. Just each member has to be approved. So, you know, John would come with a recommendation, you guys approve it. You would come with a recommendation, the board approves it. I don't think there's any legal process.
I guess I bring up the interview thing simply because I do know Marvin. I know, I mean, if you said make a vote right now, it's probably the way I would lean. However, I don't know, I know Bob, but I don't know him as well as I know Marvin. I think to be fair, I would feel more comfortable getting to know Bob a little bit more, so I am making sure that I'm making a fair decision, not just based on my one experience with Marvin and just sort of overlooking Bob because I don't know him as well.
Well, I think that's reasonable and probably appropriate, because my answer would be just the same. The opposite, I've known Bob for a long time in his capacity as a public officer.
Right. So we would be split on that, probably right off the top. So I think to eliminate that, best just.
So let me coordinate with everyone, including Director Woodbury, an opportunity for us to meet maybe in advance of the board meeting, maybe in March. Probably allow maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes at most.
Half hour total.
Yeah. Okay. And then we'll let Marvin and Bob know. So with that, I think this is tabled, and we'll bring this back for a vote in March.
Okay, and it's fine to work directly with Director Green, because obviously I'm gonna be doing the coordination on this to make this happen, so
Yeah,
everyone's good with that.
We'll all be at the meeting.
Yes, I think it's the 5 directors should sit down with each of these individuals that are presented by the board. And we can take a vote during the public meeting. So, okay, on to staff reports, Chief.
Yeah, it was pretty long. Staff report, been an extremely busy month. We've gotten a lot of things done. I'll just hit, I think, what I believe are the important items. So, first of all, my apologies. I think I provided you with some misinformation regarding the FURA board, and that was that I believe I had told you that we were guaranteed a spot on that board, which we're not. If you look at the FURA bylaw, basically what it says is that, you know, preference or consideration, I believe are the actual words, will be given to board members or representatives from special districts. So what we had done was earlier, when the application for those memberships or those board memberships were open, I think back in October, we had, at this board's recommendation, submitted one for Director Woodbury. In the process, since that time, he has been appointed to the City Council, and they are also in the final stages of their approval for the FURA committees. Now, according to the way that the bylaws work and the way that they're set up, they only have, I believe it's 2 City Council members that can sit on that board. So he can't do dual role. If he's a City Council member, he can't fill in. So with that said, and the fact that the application period is now closed, we do not have a board member that is sitting on there. Although on that current board is John Scott, a prior board member who has agreed to provide updates, and in fact he even said he'd be willing to come this March if you'd like and give you an update, because they've got some stuff coming on, I guess, like the 101 project and whatnot. In addition to that, they said that we can, at the next cycle, we can get somebody in there and we'll try it again. So anyways, any questions or a direction for me on that as we move forward?
I think asking Mr. Scott to come to the March meeting would be a good idea. So we can get him on the agenda and for a few minutes to talk about the district.
Sean Barrett retirement is, we're having 2 events on
Friday.
Friday.
Sorry, is there, Director Carnahan?
It seems like because they're taking tax revenue away from us, which they are, we should have some representation. And I thought we're strong, it should be one of the board members. And I still feel the same way. Because they are taking tax dollars away from sites, all the fire and the residents in our area. Correct?
Correct. An approach could be that once we get a member on that board, as a member of that board, you could make a recommendation. I'm not sure exactly how they're set up, but possibly to re-examine the bylaws and maybe adjust the language that, again, not being that familiar with it, but just throwing that out there as a solution. Currently, that's what they say and where we're at.
And we will not have the opportunity to directly apply until next year.
Correct.
Next October.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
I think your comment in here, although, again, Director Webb of the ambulance district is not part of this board, but because of the IGA, there is a common interest.
Yes.
I appreciate his perspective on it as well.
It doesn't change my feelings.
Yeah, there's no disagreement.
Okay. On to the next item, Sean Barrett retirement. So 2 events this week. On Friday, we're having an open house for the public. It's open to anybody who'd like to come by. 3 to 5 will be up here. Chance to say thank you for what you've done. On Saturday, we've got like a little bit of a party, I guess. Luncheon started at 11 o'clock. All board members are welcome. Members are welcome. It's invitation only. That is not open to the public. Seismic grant awards, they're starting work. In fact, they're going to be out at Sutter Lake tomorrow doing some drilling to determine, I guess, the potential for liquefaction out there. So we're actually seeing things. You'll see in your attachments to this report that we received 2 bids, and they were well under what we had put in for the grants. Office manager position, we've offered the position to Dina McClure. She's accepted. She should be starting the 19th. One thing that I've mentioned here before is the EMT bill, House Bill 4030, which has come up, and it's in the process of being implemented. A couple of things that are relevant to us as a fire district, what that does or what it could do for us, we're still learning exactly how we're going to, or how that's going to be administered, but there is potential for reimbursement for non-transporting EMS responding agencies. For transporting responding agencies, they anticipate giving an additional $500 to Medicare and Medicaid patients, and there's also some potential that it can apply to the MIH program as well, so that's good news there.
Could I, before we go on to the next
Yep.
one, back to the office manager position. I have some concern about the salary, and I had mentioned it before in terms of what we're offering her. And I don't know if that's something we want to discuss in the executive session.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea, the provision by state statute that allows us to go into executive session for discussion of an officer or an employee compensation, but to exercise that, we need to notate that, and appreciate Director Hickson providing me the statute, but Oregon Revised Statute 192.660 Article A. We defer that session.
Okay, let's see, Safer Grant, big news on that. We've got 21 people coming up in the next recruit academy, and there are 2 from Mapleton, 10 from Swiss Home Deadwood. AFG grant for the hose. Chief Dickerson has ordered that. That should be arriving here soon. Yeah, I think pretty much that's about it, other than we've got the policy review committee that will be meeting here soon, and directors Green, Hickson, and Webb are going to be on that for the 2 districts. So with that, any questions for me?
I do have a question about that policy subcommittee. It states in their report at the meeting of the 8th. I heard you didn't hear that. I wasn't aware of that. So what was the time set?
I gotta go back, I'll take a look at it and we'll. I think we had sent you one and you weren't able to make the first one, if memory serves me right.
8 looks very different.
Okay. The challenge is when you're dealing with different schedules, it's hard to meet everybody's needs. I'm trying. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Chief Director? All right. Chief Dickerson, operations report.
January is the first year of the month. We have 53 calls, so we have 53 calls total for the year so far. We had a pretty significant attic fire. We had a really good stop on it, but it did come out to almost $70,000 for a fire loss. So. Average firefighters are 9, which is still a really good number. That's all our multi-unit responses, and our response time was just under 8 minutes, which is making me really happy. Training report, kicking it off huge. We got 21 recruits, as the chief stated in his report. That's a big class, so there's been a lot going on with that. So we're going to be using our company evolutions and really hammering those through. That way we've got a uniform response with our mutual aid partners as well as our people trained up for stuff to happen really good. Winter Fire School, we had 7 firefighters attending from our district, so excellent education opportunity. Prevention is really busy. They sent out the press releases to the community about business inspections. You'll see those starting up pretty soon with the volunteer inspectors, as well as us getting out and doing some of the B levels. Acting Captain Miller has installed all of our grant-funded smoke detectors, and we're seeking some more because that program's been really well received and getting a lot of those put up. Recruiting and retention. So BOA's really busy. You can see that with 21 people coming to a recruit academy. We're getting good candidates in and rolling out some programs that will assist retaining them as long as possible. It's good to get them in the door, but if you only keep them for 6 months to a year, that's a lot of training to put into them.
10 upriver, that's great.
Yeah, they're bursting at the seams up there. We just completed interviews with each current member, and we're getting plus and delta feedback so we can adjust on how we educate and how we move as a district on those. Seismic upgrade work is getting started. Facilities are being addressed. We're getting ready for construction and making plans to move equipment when needed. Equipment, some of our stuff is getting kind of old and banged up. Thermal imaging cameras, extremely short battery life. They no longer make those cameras or the batteries, so I'm seeking to find some new batteries for that. Otherwise, we will be seeking some in the next grant cycle, looking at some new thermal imagers as well as some other stuff. I have made the grant order, and we'll be preparing to receive all that hose in the next 45 to 60 days. And it's a substantial amount of hose, and we're going to put all of it while we get it put together. I'll be looking real soon at making our bunker gear order and pagers again. We're adding a lot of personnel, and gear will be short when we add them, which is an awesome problem to have. Annual service of the light and medium fleet is complete, and service of the heavy fleet continues. I have something to add on that that's not on your agenda. We had many items fail or need replacing on some of the Aegis truck, and some of the newer units, when we work on them, it's rather costly because new computer parts are expensive. So on that, engine 7, which is our reserve engine that we often put into place behind the other ones, we had an estimate for $5,500 to get everything replaced on it so it could be up to service and ready to run. Ran that through with our fiscal policy, ran it through the chief, was approved. Sent it to Oregon Apparatus Repair. We also approached the other one in Eugene, which I can't remember the name of right now. But Oregon Apparatus was the lower bid. They asked if they could do an NFPA check on it at the same time. I figured, hey, while it's there, get an NFPA check on it. The labor hours went to like 110 at $100 an hour, so it blew that a little above both myself and the chief director's level, and the total bill came to $14,283. That is a board level expenditure. We do have room in the maintenance budget for it, but it was larger than, I even called the company and asked, really, this was the estimate? So that was on me on that one.
So will this extend its life expectancy?
It
Be
should.
able to keep it longer?
We should be able to keep it longer. I think we have plans to keep it longer. It's a reserve engine. It goes like really well now. It's like driving one of the new ones. Yeah, we'll be able to use it, and it functions very well. We use it a lot for training with our added training schedule, and we were doing a lot more training on it. It was seeing some wear and tear. This prepares it for continue to use it as the training engine, as well as being a replacement engine when we have something else go down. And EMS, we're maintaining EMTs and EMRs. We have 2 personnel that are currently in an EMR class with LFA. I encourage students to take classes outside our district, especially when there's no cost to us other than travel. Hearing the same instructors over and over, things do tend to get old. So they'll be back from that pretty soon. They should be taking their final tests this coming weekend. Other than that, I have nothing to report. Are there any additional questions for me?
Any questions? No, great report, thank you. Ross, you want to hit the financials, please?
Yes. Have a couple of things before I get into the financials. Our phone system, which we talked to you about last time, is going to be installed Tuesday. I'm not certain when cutover will be, but at least all the hardware will be on site. Supposedly cutover is stop using that one and start using that one. So we'll see how that works. All of our, let me see, payroll system, we're working on that. New timekeeping system with ADP. We will not be go live March 1st. It'll be April 2nd will be the first check we produce under the new process. We're making good progress on that. They've got our master files and they're about ready to turn it on so we can actually start training and looking at how that works.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Maybe this was brought up before. Besides basic timekeeping, ADP offers a tremendous amount of other benefits
Yes.
and additional costs. Is that something that is going to be reviewed or considered in the next fiscal year, or are we just going to stick with?
If I may, we are scheduled to do the HR part of that as well.
Awesome.
But I think is what we're going to try to do is make sure we can write checks first, and then we'll start turning on other modules of that as we get the time.
And if we discuss that, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So anyway, that work is going on. I got to say, Holly is doing a great job of orchestrating all that and being the go-to person for ADP. With that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the financials before I give you an opportunity to ask questions. Right now, we've got about $1.1 million in the bank that you could write a check for, although $200,000 of that is in our reserve accounts that we talked about. At this point, it looks like we're on budget, if not better than, in all of our categories. HR or personal services for operations is at 105% this month. It was at 115% last month, and that's due to the conflag that everybody went on. So you had a blip in that schedule, and we're actually recovering even with that. So that's a good thing. The sheets you have in front of you are run on 2/13, and I've got to tell you that getting the month closed out takes me almost a week and a half to get that done. I'm only working a couple of days a week, so it takes some extra time. I had the chance today to go through this report, and I got to say there were some miscodes and things that needed to be cleaned up. Nothing that's substantive or would make a big impact on the bottom line, but some of your questions, I may tell you that, hey, we fixed it and it'll be fixed next month. With that, what questions can I answer for you?
When is the seismic grant expected to be received?
Well, the payback on that?
The actual grant revenue.
We are collecting the receipts as we speak, and we'll be contacting the state for how we go about reimbursement with that. I don't know if they, honestly, at this point, I'm not sure if they want it as you go, or if they want it all at once. I know that there's approximately a 2.5 year time frame to get the work done. But if you look at that bid sheet, said that the winning bid would be done in 155 days, so well within the 2.5-year time frame. So
But likely, we would recognize that revenue this fiscal year.
yes, yes, would be that's on my hot list. The reimbursement from the conflicts, though, I will tell you, I think you may have heard this before, we've got from the California's over 200, 220. We have submitted all of our paperwork, but the way California accepts it is they want a bill from the state of Oregon. And so there were, I believe there were 63 different departments and districts that responded to that fire. Currently, as we speak, or at least as of last week on the update, 6 had submitted their all of their paperwork. We are one of the 6. I think the other 5 are from this county. With that said, you know, I can tell you that I've spoken with the chief of the OFCA and Western Fire Chiefs about this, and personally, and said, well, you know, if you want people to go to these fires, you can't hamstring us with this much. You know, their response at that time was, well, you shouldn't send them if you don't have the money. It's like, well, we do have the money, but you know, we need to get it within that fiscal year, within a reasonable time frame. So hopefully they're going to take notice of this, and there's going to be some discussions with the state of California OEM and maybe figure this out, because I'm sure in the future they're going to want us again.
Well, we have the best people, so they won't know us.
And we got there quick.
Yeah.
So, down on the Chetka River fire, that's through the state of Oregon, correct?
That is correct.
Has it been reimbursed?
I don't think that's been reimbursed yet.
It's not been reimbursed yet, but we're closing in on that really quick. I spoke to some folks at State Fire Marshal's office and OEM, and they're preparing to cut checks on that.
Okay. Everything on our end has been submitted. Good.
Other questions on the financials? Director?
Just one, the special district's insurance for $37,304. Is that health insurance, or is that for vehicles, or?
I believe that is health insurance, or that's property insurance, vehicle insurance.
Which number were you looking at? I'm sorry.
It was the one that came up this month, signed.
25,830.
The biggest expenditure on my list.
I believe it was property as well as vehicle. It might have been our disability and those outside of our health care, because our health care is from the
Okay, I was curious, is that 6 months, is that a year, or?
I think that's off the top of my head. I'm going to double check on that, but I believe it's a biannual payment.
Okay.
Director Carnahan, would you like confirmation of the period it's for in the breakout, or is it?
I'll monitor it. It's one of those things that's a fairly large number.
Which account number is it, sir? I'm sorry to.
I've got, well, it's check number 25,830.
Oh, check number 25,830, I'm sorry.
It was a large. I'll get back to you and I'll report back to the board. I'll give you a call on that this week.
Okay.
I just had a question. I noticed a couple of entries on there for Exford in there, 50,000. It was check number 11012. I think it was another. I'm just curious, were they like?
Yeah,
balance each other
they're
out?
offsetting. One of them was a mistake, basically. And so I had to offset it in order to make the things balance.
I wish they'd make that mistake on my check.
Yeah. Well, the net's out to zero, so
Yeah.
I can do that if I want
Probably
to.
look at that check, because it was beyond what their expenditure was, the $14,000 for all apparatus.
For the SD, special district check, insurance?
Well,
Oh, earlier on G.
Yes.
Robert, yes, okay. We'll conclude this, we'll go back and.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
that should be part of this.
Other questions on the financials? Okay, going back, we had an expenditure we need to approve. Could you, Chief Dickerson, restate that amount?
$14,283.09.
Okay, motion to approve that expenditure.
I would make that motion.
For a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Expenditure approved. Thank you. Thank you. All right. With that, that would end Ross's section. Thank you. So at this point, is there anything from the board that is not on the agenda that any director would like to discuss?
Don't we have to pay the bills?
We sure do. You're right. I'm just anxious for dinner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. We need to ratify the bills that were spent during the month of January, $169,796.34. Is there a motion and the corresponding transfer for that as well? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Approved. Okay, director comments. Anything not on the agenda you'd like to discuss? I think what I'd like to do then is utilize this time to, as previously discussed, break into executive session. We're allowed by Oregon statute to discuss salary, and then we'll resume.
And we also have some information updates on the negotiations with A51.
Okay, thank you. Some later updates on the negotiations. And then we'll resume the meeting after the executive session. All right, we'll break into that at this point. All right, well, we'll resume the board meeting and break from executive session as defined by state statute. And to clarify, there was no action taken, it was just an update for the board. So, thank you very much. With that, any other conversation by board members that they wanted to bring up with anything that's not on the agenda? Nothing else? Few correspondence in the packet, some nice things in there, by the way. And there's nothing else?
Gee, something I forgot to ask. We recently did our eligibility list for firefighter, and we have the panels coming up, the interview panels, on March 2nd. I would like one of the board members, if possible, to sit on one of the panels.
I think I'm already. You're doing
For the
fire prevention
fire prevention captain. We also have the firefighter engineer, and we'll have a panel.
So we might be able to look
If
at
someone's available.
more than one, too.
The second is a Saturday? What
It's gonna be on Tuesday.
What's the date?
I think that's.
March 2nd.
That's a Friday.
It's Friday.
On a Friday?
It's Friday.
At what time?
Well, it's gonna be throughout the day, because we'll probably have like 11 candidates.
So 11, 14 applied and, 15 applied, one dropped before the physical. We lost 2 in the physical and then one is withdrawn. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna kind of stay away from that because I really like one of your candidates really a lot. I think that he's worked well so far and he could do the job very well.
It's on Friday.
Yeah, no, your bad day.
Thank you.
You know,
I'm
it's,
out of town.
if you can't, you can't. We always encourage your participation if possible.
I would love to, but like I said, I might have some printed business, so.
Can you check with me tomorrow? I'll look at my calendar.
Happy to do that.
I'll drop over what times it'll be, Director Phillips, if you'd like that.
I'm sorry?
I'll drop over the times.
Okay, yeah.
We're gonna set the times after they take the written test on Saturdays.
It's almost easier for me to just be gone rather than try to get in and out because I can head out the door and have somebody catch me there, so.
I could stop in the shop and do some work for you. You know,
Not bring my car that day.
You've got long arms, you know, some of those, there's times those long arms would be really good. But you also have large hands, that may not be so good.
Yeah. Well, with that, I don't think there's anything else. We will officially adjourn this meeting at 7:46. Thank you.
Thank you.